Hi, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to the District 30 Senate candidate virtual town hall. My name is Malcolm Chapman, and I partnered with Elevate Rapid City to moderate this event. First, let me just start off by saying I hope that in this uncertain time that everyone, yourself, your family, and your circle is being healthy and being safe at this time. We're excited that you chose to be a part of this afternoon session as we invite local legislative candidates to share their platform, their ideas, and their story. In these uncertain times, public meetings and traditional campaign events are difficult to facilitate. So we hope these webinars can help serve as the public's opportunity to hear from candidates themselves. Today, we have joining us in the race for District 30 Senate is George Cotty, Republican running for District 30 Senate, and Gideon Oaks, Libertarian running for District 30 Senate. Julie Frye-Mueller is the last candidate running for the one available seat in the state Senate, but she is not present with us this afternoon. As a reminder, George Cotty and Julie Frye-Mueller are facing a Republican primary election on June 2nd. Just a tad bit about my background. Again, my name is Malcolm Chapman. I facilitate, I do public speaking, and soon to be an author. I'm a former locally elected official at the city level, at the city council level here in Rapid City, and I'm just thrilled to be a part of this today. I would like to now set the stage for the town hall. We are first going to introduce each candidate in alphabetical order by last name. Each candidate will have 5 minutes to introduce themselves. As the candidate runs through their introductions, the audience is encouraged to submit questions through the question and answer feature found on your screen. Once the introductions are finished, I will begin to ask questions that are received from the audience through the Q&A feature. Each candidate will then have a chance to respond. Each candidate has 2 minutes to provide their answers before we move to the next candidate. We will rotate who has the first chance to respond. We have the ability to export all questions that are submitted through the Q&A. So if your specific question is not read aloud, we encourage the candidates to reach out after the webinar and address your question directly. We will do our best to ask as many questions as time limit allows. We will conclude once the stream of audience questions expire. There are 2 questions that we send each candidate ahead of time to prepare. I will cover these topics if the questions aren't asked by the audience. We will then conclude promptly at 5 o'clock to be respectful of time. Finally, I want to set a few guidelines. As a reminder, only questions received through the Q&A feature will be submitted to me to ask the candidates. We will not address questions sent through the chat feature. I, as the moderator, will strictly enforce the time limits, and I also will hold up a red card when each candidate has 30 seconds left. After 2 minutes, the candidate will be muted so that we can move on to the next candidate or the next question. Most importantly, we ask that you treat all candidates and other webinar attendees with respect. If you abuse the Zoom chat feature in an inappropriate or derogatory manner, we reserve the right to dismiss you from the Zoom webinar. And with that, let's get started. George, you have 5 minutes to introduce yourself, and welcome.
Well, thank you, Malcolm, and thank Elevate Rapid City, who's allowed us this time for dialogue. It gives me an opportunity to introduce myself and let you know who I am. I'd say that I'm a warrior. Warriors spent a lifetime fighting for the values and freedoms we Americans hold dear and near to our hearts. Now more than ever, South Dakota needs warriors in our legislature, proven warriors, leaders who know how to do the right thing in the midst of some very trying times. I've been there for America, whether it's flying over the skies of Vietnam or ensuring our Air Force assets are fully supported while enforcing the no-fly zone in Desert Storm. I've been there for my community as the executive director of our Hot Springs Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development. And I'm currently there as mayor of Hot Springs, fighting to protect our citizens during this ongoing pandemic. I grew up in Lead. I graduated from the Air Force Academy. And after seeing the world, I decided that these Black Hills was a good place to retire. I retired here as a colonel from Ellsworth Air Force Base. But looking into the future, I know there's going to be some difficult decisions that need to be made in the coming months, decisions that have to be made by proven warriors. The Air Force provided me an excellent training ground by allowing me to have a variety of challenging jobs. And probably the biggest lesson that I've learned is one cannot do things by themselves. We need to rely on working together to garner success. For example, when I was base commander at Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana, the first round of BRAC was about to come out. We worked together with the local Civilian Military Affairs Committee and the congressional delegation from Louisiana to garner $95 million worth of construction to improve our infrastructure. If you'll notice, Barksdale was never on the base closure list. And I know the hard work that went into keeping and getting Ellsworth off the list. And we want to work together to make sure that doesn't happen again. And I would say, thanks to God, I have been given a strong moral compass. I'm totally pro-life, from abortion to end-of-life decisions. As a pastor, I have worked with people who have made bad decisions, and I've watched them find a path back to a fruitful life. Legislators cannot legislate morality, but as warriors, we have a right and a responsibility to protect life. I've been comfortable carrying a gun since I was a little kid, hunting with my parents to being a warrior in the military. I'm pro-Second Amendment because I've sworn to support and defend the Constitution of this United States. I love teaching my grandchildren how to shoot, and I think I could almost still maintain my expert marksmanship level. My roots run deep here in South Dakota. My grandmother homesteaded a small ranch in the Black Hills. I learned a strong work ethic from making hay, fixing fences, chopping wood, all the way to helping my parents with a small cow-calf operation. And just to let you know, as a part-time mayor, and I put in an average of over 40 hours a week, and I'll attend every legislative session and work hard for the people of South Dakota. I'm a warrior. I want to protect our way of life. I don't want my favorite fly fishing holes to become polluted, but I also want to see our area grow into a healthy economy that keeps our youth from having to go out of state. I hope to serve you as a District 30 senator, and as I do, I hope to be honest enough to tell you what I don't know and humble enough to listen to input from others. We can all get better by working together, which takes me back to my chamber days. I'm sure Linda Raby remembers our Black Hills Business Council. It was an informal group of chamber leaders that met together each month. We had a lot of laughs, a few tears, but the teamwork made our region better. If you look at a relief map of the United States sometimes, you'll notice that right in the middle, at the center of our nation, is the Black Hills. It's shaped like a heart. We live in a deeply divided nation, and I pray that as we work together, we can bring healing to a land that's plagued with pandemic. Let's work together and make that happen.
George, thank you. Gideon, you have 5 minutes to introduce yourself. Please do so.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you, Malcolm, for hosting today. I don't know if you remember, probably not, way back in the day, you came to Stevens High School and taught I don't know if you were teaching a class, but you read us a book called Who Moved My Cheese? And that I've hoped to have the opportunity to dialogue more with you over the years. And so just wanted to say thanks for hosting today here. So my name is Gideon Oaks. I am a 4th generation South Dakotan. Most importantly, I am a husband and a father. Those are my biggest sources of pride in my whole life. My wife, Mary, and I have 2 kids who, if everything goes according to plan, won't be popping in the background here. We're all getting used to the new Zoom culture here in our lives. I work as a real estate broker in Rapid City. I am also fortunate enough to work as a graphic designer and a landlord as well. Previously, my wife and I owned and operated Teddy's Deli, which was a sandwich shop and coffee shop in Keystone. So I like to tell people when they ask, After keeping 15 to 20 high school and college students on task all summer for almost a decade of my life, lobbyists, bureaucrats, politicians, they don't really frighten me too much. Like I said, I'm a fourth generation South Dakotan. My great grandfather and namesake, Cecil Clyde, or CC Gideon, helped Senator Norbeck lay out Iron Mountain Road. He designed the pigtail bridges. He built and operated the State Game Lodge. He designed Guts and Borglum's first artist studio and eventually became the first private concessionaire at the newly carved Mount Rushmore. So I tell you all that not to, brag about my ancestors, but to show you that I have a 102-year vested interest in making sure that our area and our state continue to thrive. To that end, I've sat on the boards of many community organizations. I've had the privilege of being elected twice to the Keystone Board of Trustees. And in addition to leadership experience, I like to think that I bring a new set of eyes and ears to the table. District 30, my home here, deserves a fresh perspective and an approachable state senator. Right now, I'm running because more than ever, we need unity rather than division. Political dialogue in our country has frankly hit an all-time low. It's devolved into constant yelling, demonizing, and in many cases, hatred of our neighbors over their political beliefs. Now, don't get me wrong, disagreement is not a bad thing in and of itself. It's not that we need to disagree less, it's that we need to disagree better. We need to get back to work and solve problems, not as Republicans and Democrats, but as South Dakotans. And as someone who is not beholden to either major party, I have the luxury of considering each piece of legislation that comes before me on its own merit and not worrying about what party leadership is going to think or how I'm going to look on a scorecard. So more than anything, you have my word that I will approach every situation and approach every vote with an open mind rather than a preconceived notion that I have all the answers. I know I still have some time here, and I just want to apologize a little bit here. We live 3 miles directly east of Mount Rushmore, and over the last couple of days, we were right in the path of the smoke from the prescribed burning up there. My allergies have been just absolutely killing me. So if you see me drinking water here all the time and have a scratchy throat, please forgive that here. So thank you so much. And again, I'll turn the floor back over to Malcolm for some questions here.
George and Gideon, thank you both for those introductions. I'll start off with the first question, and we'll start off with Gideon. What would be supportive would you be supportive of expanding Medicaid in South Dakota? And if not, what do you propose the 50,000 that are not eligible do for health care?
Sure. Thanks for the question on that. Medicaid expansion is obviously one of those hot button issues, and it is so because we have a gap and we need to take care of folks in that range who are just missing. I personally am not in favor of expanding Medicaid, but I am absolutely 100% in favor of growing the economy in a way that doesn't just serve the top and the bottom of the wage gap here. We need to expand our economy. We need to create more of these lower middle class jobs and frankly, a middle class job in general. We owe it to our economy and to our citizenry to help foster that sort of economic growth. Nobody wants to be on Medicaid. Everybody wants to be able to have income for themselves, produce for their families, and we owe it to them to help foster those jobs coming into the area.
Gideon, thank you. George, the same question. Would you like for me to read it again?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Would you be supportive of expanding Medicaid in South Dakota? And if not, what do you propose the 50,000 that are not eligible do for health care?
Okay, I'd really have to look at the actual proposal. Obviously, I think we as a community have the responsibility for giving people a hand up when they're in need. But I also think that the biggest hand and help that we can get is people to become self-sufficient and make it on their own. And that's getting jobs, keeping jobs, getting good paying jobs, and encouraging people and giving us an opportunity to grow our economy. So initially, without really looking at the facts and figures, I'm really against a blanket increase in that, but I also think that we need to be merciful and be really and compassionate to help people out if there really is a need.
George, thank you. Our next question will start with you, George. If elected to the legislature, what types of legislation would you support that encourages economic development, particularly jobs, affordable housing, and infrastructure?
Okay, well, first of all, I don't have any legislature bills to introduce, but I tell you what, I think the first thing that we need to concentrate on is a response to COVID-19. Our economy is going to be hurt and things are going to be topsy-turvy for a while, and we need to look at ensuring that we're giving our local businesses an opportunity to have a hand up. And so I think that would be the first thing that I would concentrate on. Right here in Hot Springs, we've worked on economic development. Tonight, we have a very important council vote to add a suspended sidewalk to our River Street flood wall. That will provide an opportunity to create a gathering area in our downtown and help our local businesses. We've also worked to help save the VA, which is a very, very important part of our local economy. And one of the things that really that we've made an important inroads in is in the area of providing workforce housing. The city made some land available. We do have a contractor on board to start beginning to put workforce housing on those lots this summer. Likewise, we've developed a golf course subdivision by paving roads, and we've had record number of building permits over the last couple of years.
George, thank you. Gideon, would you like for me to read the question again?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind. Thanks, Malcolm.
If elected to the legislature, what types of legislation would you support that encourages economic development, particularly jobs, affordable housing, and infrastructure?
All right, thanks for that. You know, I'm a big fan of using any budget surpluses that the state has wisely. It's not always the most ideal situation to accrue surpluses, but we have, we've got a couple $100 million in surpluses. And in those situations, if we're going to have a surplus, I believe that we should be, like any savvy investor should, be putting those funds into strategic opportunities. I'm a big fan of low interest economic development loans, and one of the best examples, and I'll probably have the chance to talk about this later as well, but one of the best examples I've seen lately is the cattle producers who were able to take advantage of a low interest economic development loan to reopen the Bad River packing plant and to start U.S. Beef producers, I believe is the new name of that. That is going to be one of the best things for that sector of the economy, is to enable the private sector to be able to grow on that. So, as a real estate agent, I hate to see any investment just sit there and go to waste. It should be, like I said, put into strategic uses. And so hopefully that's one of the things I would support if elected. And as far as infrastructure goes, and you said the red flag means 30 seconds, Malcolm?
Yes.
Okay, thanks for that. Infrastructure is always critical to our state. I mean, that's one of the core functions of government, is to provide that. The way to do that is to not raise taxes on folks. It is to stimulate the economy. So I think I'm at the end of my time there. So thanks again.
Gideon, thank you. With just two of you, I'm going to keep coming back to you. It seems like too soon, but Gideon, this question will start with you. Governor Nome said March's initial revenue data show that the state is down 18.1 million in general fund revenue. What ideas do you have for reducing the budget?
Ooh, I don't know if that audio burst was on my end or if that was on everybody's end there. Can you repeat the last part of that question? I'm so sorry.
Sure. I'll read the entire question again. Governor
thanks.
Nome said March's initial revenue data show that the state is down 18.1 million in general fund revenue. What ideas do you have for reducing the budget? Got it.
I am no stranger to having to make those hard decisions when it comes to budgetary cuts. I've been in small business. My wife and I owned a restaurant for 10 years. And if the revenue is not there, you can't go on spending like you have. So those cuts have to be made, whether they're across the board or in strategic sectors. That's something we all have to take a hard look at. I am grateful to the previous administration and this administration for running a fairly tight ship. As far as the executive branch goes, we don't have a ton of waste at that level, but there is always room to trim. And so I would have to look specifically into the budget and figure out exactly where to make those cuts. I'm coming in with principles right now at this point, rather than necessarily a absolute plan at this point, what's going to happen once I'm in.
Gideon, thank you. George, the same question. Would you like for me to read it again?
Yeah, please.
Sure. Governor Nome said March's initial revenue data show that the state is down 18.1 million in general fund revenue. What ideas do you have for reducing the budget?
Well, we've already addressed that here also in our local community, knowing that with the ordinances as passed and the businesses that are closed, looking at our budget and looking at ways to make cuts that will help us keep it balanced. I think it involves going through the entire budget and looking at a line by line item, where areas can be cut. Exactly what we've done in the city of Hot Springs. And there's some things that you don't want to cut that'll pay back investment and increase income in the long run, but other things that might be a little bit wasteful or not as much a return on investment. So you probably would want to put your priorities there. But the big thing, I think, is that we keep things balanced. We've got to keep the budget balanced, that we don't use this as an opportunity to spend more than the revenue we take in.
George, thank you. And George, we're going to come right back to you with the first question in this round.
Okay.
South Dakota's economy has grown at a lesser rate than surrounding states and at less than the normal national rate. We are a service-based economy that does not necessarily produce high-income jobs. In order to support state employees, education, providers, and other functions of state government, what do you propose we do to try and grow the economy?
I think there's a couple of real opportunities in West River. First of all, I grew up in Lead, and Lead, the home of the Homestake Gold Mine. Both my folks work for Homestake. Now is turned into a premier scientific lab, and we have opportunities there, and I think we need to maximize those opportunities to bring as much research and development as we can into the Hills area. The second thing that I think is really important, being an Air Force veteran and having gone through combat crew training and gone through bases where new weapon systems are based. We need to take full advantage of that. There's opportunities to bring those who are involved in technology, that the avionics systems, for example, the stealth capabilities are all opportunities that we can get those type of businesses to help support the B-21 bed down here at Ellsworth. And I think expanding the opportunities and degrees at the School of Mines and Technology. People that come here like to stay here. I know several of the people that I served with in the Air Force ended up either retiring here or coming back here to retire. And so we need to take advantage of that talent pool and encourage them to stay and develop businesses also.
George, thank you. Gideon, would you like for me to reread the question? I know it was long.
No, that's fine. I think I got it here. That's always the $1,000,000 question, Malcolm, what we can do to bring in those middle-class jobs to make our economy whole. You know, we do a pretty darn good job of creating the low-wage service jobs and the high-wage business owner positions, but that gap in the middle is what we always have to work on filling. Ben Snow was a friend of mine. I'm sure you worked with him a lot when he was president of Rapid City Economic Development. And we sat on several sessions trying to listen to the economy, to listen to, I've got thunder coming in now too. It's kind of distracting here. This could be interesting since I'm actually wired into the power grid here. Pray for me. Anyway, we sat on, he hosted, I sat in on several sessions trying to answer that exact question. And obviously the core that we need to reach out to are not necessarily the same ones we've always reached out to. I was fortunate enough to work for a company that was a third-party logistics company. It had its call center in Rapid City, and it paid, middle class wages for these jobs that they brought in. And that's who we need to be reaching out to. We spend a lot of time seeming to grow both ends when we should be growing the middle here.
Gideon, thank you. We'll go, Gideon, you'll start with this one. Both of you have talked about the need to work together to accomplish progress. How do you specifically intend to work with other elected officials to support our region?
Sure thing. Well, I would say that's one of the best reasons to vote for somebody that is not part of one of the two major political parties in South Dakota. We have to, like I said in my introduction, we have to start solving these problems not as Republicans and Democrats, but as South Dakotans. And so naturally, right off the bat, I think I can be a bridge helping the parties to work together to accomplish progress in our state. My objective running as a third party candidate, and my objective as a third party legislator, if I'm elected, is not to cause yet another layer of division, but to give the honest consideration to each bill that isn't being guided by the existing layers of division. So in that way, I believe I can be more effective as a third party legislator than others. There's absolutely nothing wrong with parties. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being principled, but it does become a problem when you think that you have all the answers and that everyone who doesn't share your exact set of principles is wrong or evil.
George, the same question.
Okay, that's something that I've done all my career is working together. And I remember my days back in the Air Force, just prior to Desert Storm, we were going through a bunch of budget deals. The group commanders seemed like they were fighting each other, trying to get as much in their pockets as they could. But when the Desert Storm kicked off, everybody banded together as a unit fight a common enemy. And I think that that's one of the things that I've learned throughout my career, whether it's been in ministry or here with the city council, that we have got to work together and sit down and listen to one another. We've done that here in Hot Springs. I've listened to my council, I've listened to the staff, I've listened to citizens. And I think the opportunities that come through Cracker Barrels, that just one-on-one conversations with others help bring those ideas to fruition. And none of us has a complete and perfect answer, but everyone has something to contribute to the solution. And we must be ears open, eyes open, and heart open to receive.
Thank you. Such unprecedented times right now. I'm just going to come back to questions regarding COVID-19. As a state legislator, what role will you take in leading Rapid City and the larger South Dakota community through a period of repair and regrowth for effects of the pandemic, economic development, public safety, and state fiscal policy?
Well, I think there's some very important things that need to be done. First of all, we need to work with the Department of Health and know exactly what our status is within the state, to know, to follow the models and understand where we are as far as resolving the actual pandemic itself. But then as we begin to recover, we've got to concentrate on our primary industries. Of course, agriculture being number one, but tourism being number two. And that really is probably the biggest industry in District 30. And so I would put a lot of effort into ensuring that there's a recovery to that important economic driver in our communities. I know it's been an important driver in Hot Springs. We've had a recent fire along River Street that destroyed 3 of our very productive businesses. We've got our Evans Plunge shut down now. We've got the Mammoth site shut down. We need to get those open and provide opportunities for them to recover and recover quickly. And hopefully, if President Trump makes it out here to Mount Rushmore this 3rd of July, that will also be a good advertisement for all of South Dakota.
George, thank you. Gideon, same question.
Thanks for that. You know, long after COVID-19 has passed, long after we've buried our dead and our sick have recovered, you know, I'm afraid that the tasks of recovering our economy and rebuilding our supply chains are still going to be in process. This is not going to be an overnight recovery for this thing from COVID-19. And whoever fills the seat for the next 2 years is absolutely going to be called upon to make some of the hardest decisions in our state's history, without a doubt. I feel that I'm ready to face those challenges. I will face those challenges with one core belief, and that's that government should enable our innovators and our industries to solve these problems and not to cripple those industries.
Gideon, thank you. Gideon, we'll start with you. For many years, the legislative Cracker Barrels are a way for the public to interact with legislative members during the 3 months of session. If elected, will you commit to attend Cracker Barrels as often as possible?
Unequivocally, yes. You know, I have been somewhat critical of our portions of our existing leadership for not showing up and being accessible to the government. When I ran in 2018, that was one of my biggest peeves with my opponent, is not showing up to events. And it's not fair to, you know, I don't want to attack somebody that's not here to defend themselves. So I won't go too far down that. But I will absolutely be, not only show up to Cracker Barrels, but I make on my website my cell phone available to anybody that wants to call, to talk, to give me their feedback on anything. You know, the form of government that works best is that which the people are involved. And so on that topic, I actually used to host District 30 Cracker Barrels in our restaurant in Keystone. I know how important it is for the legislators to be in and among the people.
Thank you. George, same question.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the beauties of our democracy is to be able to hear from the people. And certainly that's at the grassroots, that's one of the ways that people can get their ideas across. And I'd certainly be available to listen to those and attend as many and often as I could.
And this will be our final question. And I'll start with you, George. Why are you the best candidate for this position in the state legislature, and what differentiates you as a leader in this community?
Well, I've got a proven record of leadership. I've been a leader of really all my life as an officer in the Air Force. I've had a background of challenging assignments. I can't retire, and I just keep seeking out a way to help bring people together and get things done. I've got experience at Ellsworth Air Force Base. I've been involved in tourism. I've served as chairman of the board of Black Hills Badlands. So that's important. I know the back end from the front end of the cow calf operation that my parents had. I've dealt with the COVID-19 pandemic here in Hot Springs, and I think we've done a real good job of keeping things flexible. I can work with people. I have and will continue to, and I have the best interests of the state in hand. So I would encourage people to go ahead this primary and vote for George Gotti.
George, thank you. Gideon.
Thanks again for that. It comes down to something I said in the comments before we kick this off, and that is those who show up are the ones that make the difference. And I like to think that I've shown up in several big ways for my district. Between 2009 and 2019, I had the pleasure of serving on the boards of, as mentioned earlier, I'm a two-term trustee on the Keystone Town Board. Had the honor of being elected to that twice. I've served on the Keystone Economic Development Association, the Black Hills Association of Realtors Outreach Committee, the Holy Terror Days Association, where I got to direct the haunting of Keystone for 2 years. I served on the Keystone Rural Fire Protection District, the Keystone Chamber of Commerce, the United Way of the Southern Black Hills, also with George on Black Hills and Badlands Association, and then of course the Libertarian Party of South Dakota. So why should people vote for me? When I ran for the seat in 2018, my team and I had the pleasure of knocking on more than 3,500 doors across the district. That's something we probably won't get a chance to do again this year due to COVID-19. But during that time, we made genuine connections with the people of District 30, and we listened to their stories, their issues, their concerns. And that's something that can't be duplicated with money and mail pieces. Postcards, billboards, signs, those are all about me. But real life conversations, that's what's about us. We need our community leaders to be effective. We need them to be reasonable, and we need them to be approachable. And that's what I offer. And that's why I'm running to represent my neighbors in District 30.
Thank you. It's time now to conclude our time together, but with one final opportunity, each of you will have 1 minute closing comments. So we'll start with you, Gideon.
All right. Thanks again for the opportunity, Malcolm, for hosting this. And, we only have to show up and do this once. I know you have to do this 10 different times for 5 different districts and 2 different sets of races. One thing that we didn't really talk about today, and I'm going to put it into my closing statements here, is I wish that every legislator had the opportunity to serve in municipal government before moving on to the legislature. I think that's something that would create a pool of more thoughtful, rational legislators rather than folks who go to peer with a single agenda on their mind and then find themselves winging the rest. Knowing your hometown functions is so critical before going to peer and voting on laws that affect everyone else's hometown. So with that, I would invite anybody and everybody to visit my campaign website It's electoaks.com, ELECTOAKES, and drop me a message. Even though I've talked with thousands of folks across the district, I believe government can't do its job properly without the input from the people. And also, you'll find it on the website, but my cell number is 388-2379. Thanks so much.
Gideon, thank you. George.
Well, as I mentioned in my opening statement, the Black Hills really represents the heart of America when you look at a map. And the heart of America is the lifeblood of America. And I think that we can set an example for the nation and bring healing and encouragement to this state. And I believe that I have the opportunity and have proven as a leader to be able to get people to work together to get things done. We've done it here in Hot Springs, and I would like to do it for the people of District 30. So I'd encourage people to go to my Facebook page, George Cotty for Senate, and we'll keep in contact and keep safe and keep well.
Well, on behalf of myself and Elevate Rapid City, we thank you, the audience, for your time you spent with the District 30 Senate candidates. We are also very grateful that the candidates participated and shared their perspectives with us today. Please keep in mind the date of June 2nd when the primary election will be held. If you have any questions about voting or the elections, please reach out to Elevate. Keep an eye out for the rest of our legislative candidate town halls. Our next session will be on Wednesday, the 6th of May, starting at 3 p.m. for District 32 House candidates, and again at 4:15 for District 32 Senate candidates. Make sure you register for those events, and the links will be in the chat box. Just to echo what George and Gideon both said, to everyone, be and stay well. Thank you for joining us today.